My name is Ethan Hayes. And at 32 years old, I built a multi-million-dollar tech company from nothing but determination and countless sleepless nights. Growing up as the invisible middle child, I never expected my own parents would try to legally strip me of everything I had earned. They wanted to hand my life's work to my failing older brother on a silver platter. But what happened that day in court changed our family forever, in ways none of us could have imagined. Before I dive into how my own flesh and blood betrayed me, let me know where you're watching from in the comments, and hit that like and subscribe button to join others who stand up for themselves when family crosses the line. I grew up in a modest suburban neighborhood outside Boston, in a blue colonial house with a white picket fence that looked picture-perfect from the outside. My father, Richard, worked as a financial advisor at a local firm, putting on his pressed suit every morning with the precision of a military man. My mother, Diana, was a school administrator, organized and proper, always concerned with how things appeared to others. Our family had 3 children. My older brother, Noah, was 35 now, but growing up, he was the undisputed golden child. Captain of the football team, blessed with natural charm that made adults smile and classmates gravitate toward him. The problem was, Noah never had to work for anything. Everything came easily, and when it didn't, my parents rushed in to smooth his path. Then there was my younger sister, Abigail, now 29, the baby of the family who received all the coddling and attention that comes with being the youngest. And then there was me stuck in the middle. Not athletically gifted like Noah, not naturally adorable like Abigail, just average-looking quiet Ethan, who found refuge in books and computers, while the family spotlight shined elsewhere. The pattern started early. When Noah brought home C grades, there would be celebrations. "He's just not academically inclined," my father would say proudly, as if this were some badge of honor. "He's a people person." Meanwhile, my straight A's would receive a passing nod if acknowledged at all. "That's expected from you," my mother would say, never looking up from preparing Noah's favorite meal. One particular memory stands out. I was 14 and had made it to the state science competition with a computer program I developed that could predict weather patterns. The competition fell on the same weekend as one of Noah's regular season football games. There was never even a discussion about which event my parents would attend. "You'll be fine on your own," my mother said, handing me bus fare. "You know how to get there. Noah needs the support of his family in the stands." I won first place that day. The judge, an MIT professor, said my project showed remarkable promise. I rode the bus home alone with my blue ribbon and trophy, walking into a house decorated with streamers and cake because Noah's team had won their game. My trophy sat unnoticed on the kitchen counter for weeks, until I finally took it to my room. Family vacations were always planned around Noah's interests. If he wanted to go fishing, we all went fishing. If he wanted to visit amusement parks, that's what we did. My suggestions to visit science, museums, or tech conventions were dismissed as boring for everyone else. Christmas and birthdays followed the same pattern. Noah would receive expensive sports equipment, gaming consoles, and eventually a car for his 16th birthday. I received practical gifts like socks, educational books, and for my 16th birthday, a bus pass. The message was clear: Noah was worth investing in. I was expected to make do. Computers became my escape. While Noah was out at parties and games, I was teaching myself programming languages, building websites, and diving into the early internet culture. My parents saw it as antisocial behavior, but for me it was the one place where meritocracy ruled. Code either worked or it didn't. There was no favoritism in a compiler. When college application time came, Noah's mediocre grades and good athletics earned him a spot at an expensive private university. My parents drained their savings and took out loans to send him there, where he majored in business with a focus on entrepreneurship that seemed to involve more partying than studying. Despite my perfect GPA and impressive programming portfolio, my college path was different. "We just can't afford another private school tuition," my father explained. "The state university has a decent computer program, and you can work part-time to cover expenses." I worked 30 hours a week at the campus IT department while maintaining my scholarship and graduating with honors in computer science. Noah took 6 years to graduate with a basic business degree, with my parents covering every expense and celebrating as if he'd earned a Rhodes Scholarship. By the time I finished college, I had hoped the adult world would level the playing field. I was 22, educated, and ready to prove myself in the tech industry. I believed that once I established myself professionally, perhaps I would finally earn the respect and recognition from my family that had always eluded me. Looking back now, I realize how naive that hope really was. Family patterns run deeper than logic, and the roles we're assigned in childhood have a way of following us no matter what we achieve. My early career wasn't glamorous. I landed an entry-level position at a small IT consulting firm in Boston, working 60-hour weeks, troubleshooting networks and setting up servers for local businesses. The pay was modest, but it gave me independence and real-world experience. While my co-workers headed to bars after work, I headed home to my shared apartment to work on what I believed could be something big. I had noticed a common problem among the small businesses we serviced: inventory management. The expensive enterprise systems were designed for large corporations, while small businesses cobbled together inefficient solutions using spreadsheets and manual counts. I began developing software that would be affordable, intuitive, and specifically designed for small to medium businesses. 6 months into my job, I met Frank Wilson when our firm was hired to upgrade his manufacturing company's network. Frank was in his 50s, a self-made business owner who had built his company from the ground up. Unlike most clients who left the IT people alone to do their work, Frank asked questions showing genuine interest in technology. When he caught me working on my inventory software during lunch, instead of reprimanding me, he pulled up a chair. "Tell me about this," he said, gesturing to my screen. I explained my concept, expecting polite nodding. Instead, I got rapid-fire questions about functionality, scaling, potential, and market positioning. By the end of lunch, Frank's eyes were alight with the same excitement I felt. "Kid, you're solving a real problem here," he said. "Don't waste this buried in some IT department." 3 months later, with Frank's mentorship and encouragement, I quit my job to launch my startup InvenTrack. My total savings amounted to $10,000. Hardly the venture capital that tech startups dreamed of, but enough to keep me afloat for a few months if I lived frugally. My apartment downgraded from a shared 2-bedroom to a studio the size of a large closet in a questionable neighborhood. Ramen noodles became my primary food group. I worked 18-hour days coding until my vision blurred, then sleeping for a few hours before starting again. Frank introduced me to potential clients and provided invaluable business advice, but made it clear this was my company to build or break. The first 3 months brought nothing but rejection. Small business owners were hesitant to trust their inventory to an untested system created by a 23-year-old with no track record. I was burning through my savings and questioning my decision when Harriet Green, a local bookstore owner, took a chance on me. "My current system is a disaster anyway," she said. "Let's see what you can do." I implemented my software for free working nights at her store to ensure everything transferred perfectly. When her quarterly inventory that normally took a full weekend was completed in 3 hours with greater accuracy, Harriet became my evangelist, recommending me to every business owner she knew. By the end of my first year, I had 12 paying clients and enough income to move to a slightly better apartment. By year 2, I hired my first employee, a brilliant programmer named Liam, who shared my vision. Year 3 saw us move into a real office, small but legitimate, with our company logo on the door. I was 26, running a growing tech company, and finally feeling like my career gamble was paying off. Meanwhile, Noah's post-college career resembled his academic one. He bounced between sales jobs, never lasting more than a few months before quitting or being let go. He tried starting a sports memorabilia business that failed within 6 months. Then came a premium car detailing service that folded after a year. Each failure was cushioned by our parents, who invested in each new venture and absorbed the losses when they inevitably came. Noah just hasn't found his niche. Yet my mother would explain at family gatherings. He's such a people person. He just needs the right opportunity. These family gatherings followed a predictable script. Noah would arrive late, full of charismatic excuses. My parents would fawn over him, asking detailed questions about whatever his current venture was. My career developments, even significant ones, were given cursory attention. When I secured a major contract that doubled our company size, the conversation at Thanksgiving dinner went something like this. "That's nice, Ethan," my mother said after my brief announcement. "Noah is thinking of opening a sports bar. Isn't that exciting? Tell them about your concept, Noah." Noah would launch into his half-baked business plan while my father nodded enthusiastically, already mentally writing a check. My sister Abigail would give me a sympathetic look, but remain silent, unwilling to disrupt the family dynamic. It was at one of these dinners that I first introduced Melissa, the woman who would become my girlfriend and strongest supporter. Melissa worked in marketing, and we had met at a business networking event. Smart, perceptive, and straightforward, she saw through my family's dynamics immediately. "That was painful to watch," she said on the drive home. "Do they always ignore your accomplishments like that?" "Welcome to the Hayes family hierarchy," I replied, trying to make light of it. Melissa refused to let it go. "Your company employs 15 people now. You're creating real value and jobs. Meanwhile, they're throwing good money after bad with your brother. It's insane." By the time I turned 30, Inventrack had grown beyond my wildest expectations. We employed 47 people, served over 500 businesses across the country, and had just moved into premium office space in downtown Boston. A technology magazine had featured me in their 30 under 30 list, and we were valued at just over $5 million by a venture capital firm interested in investing. Noah, now 33, was on his 7th business attempt, a fitness franchise that was already showing signs of failure, despite my parents investing a significant portion of their retirement savings. My father had delayed his retirement to continue supporting Noah's ventures, while my mother picked up extra administrative work to help make ends meet. I had purchased my first home, a comfortable condo overlooking the harbor. Melissa and I had been dating for 2 years, and I was considering proposing. For the first time in my life, I felt truly successful and hopeful about the future despite my family's continued favoritism. I had created my own path independent of their approval or support. I had no idea that my success, the very thing my parents had shown so little interest in, was about to become the target of the most profound betrayal of my life. The invitation came on a Tuesday. A text message from my mother, asking if I could join them for dinner Thursday night. "Just family," she wrote. "We have something important to discuss." There was an unusual warmth to her messages with multiple heart emojis, something she'd never used with me before. I called Melissa. "My parents want a family dinner on Thursday. They're acting weird." "Maybe they finally want to celebrate your success," she suggested, but her tone conveyed the same skepticism I felt. When I arrived at my parents' home that Thursday evening, the scene was oddly ceremonial. The good china was out, candles lit, and my mother had prepared my childhood favorite meal, something she normally reserved for Noah's visits. My father opened an expensive bottle of wine, and both my parents were uncharacteristically effusive with their greetings. "There's our successful businessman," my father exclaimed, patting my back with more enthusiasm than he'd shown in years. "We've been reading all about Inventrack's growth. Very impressive, son." My mother nodded eagerly. "We always knew you had potential, Ethan. Such a smart boy, always figuring things out on your own." The revisionist history made me uncomfortable, but I played along, wondering what they wanted. Noah arrived 20 minutes late, as usual but unusually subdued. He gave me a look I couldn't quite interpret, somewhere between resentment and discomfort. Abigail had apparently not been invited, which struck me as odd for a family dinner. Over dinner, my parents asked detailed questions about my business, its structure, valuation, and future plans. I answered cautiously, increasingly certain this newfound interest wasn't genuine appreciation. As my mother served dessert, my father cleared his throat. "Ethan, we've been thinking about family legacies and how we support each other." My mother nodded. "Family is everything, after all. We're so proud of what you've built," my father continued, "and we think it's time to formalize the family's involvement in your success." I set down my fork. "What exactly does that mean?" My father leaned forward. "We'd like you to temporarily sign over 60% of your company shares to the family trust we're establishing. Just a legal formality, really. A formality that gives you controlling interest in my company," I said slowly. "Why would I do that?" "Well," my mother interjected, "the family has always supported you, and now the family needs some support in return." The truth emerged in pieces over the next painful hour. Noah's fitness franchise was not just failing, it was drowning in debt. My parents had invested not just their retirement savings, but had taken a second mortgage on their home. They were financially overextended and facing potential bankruptcy. Their solution: have me sign over controlling interest in my company, which they would then use as collateral for loans to save Noah's business. Eventually, they explained, they would transfer most of those shares to Noah so he could turn his business around with my company's resources. "Your brother needs this opportunity more than you do," my father explained, as if this made perfect sense. "You're already successful. Noah just needs this one chance to prove himself." "After all we've done for you," my mother added, her voice taking on the guilt-inducing tone I knew well. "All the sacrifices we made for your education." The sacrifices they made for my education I had worked through college, while they paid every cent of Noah's expenses. "I built this company from nothing," I said, my voice shaking with disbelief. "No help from family, no seed money, nothing. And now you want to take it and give it to Noah." Noah, who had been silent, finally spoke. "It's not taking if it's family, Ethan. You've always been selfish, never thinking about anyone but yourself." "Selfish." I echoed, years of resentment bubbling to the surface. "I paid my own way through college. I built my business working 18-hour days while you bounced from failure to failure with mom and dad funding every mistake." The argument escalated quickly. My parents' mask of appreciation fell away, revealing the familiar dynamic. Noah was the priority, and I was expected to sacrifice for him. When it became clear I wouldn't voluntarily sign over my company, my father's approach changed. "We've consulted with attorneys," he said coldly. "We have legal options." "Legal options for stealing my company? On what grounds?" My father slid a folder across the table. "We provided seed funding for your business. The birthday check for $500 we gave you the year you started your company. Under state family business law, that constitutes initial investment." I stared at him in disbelief. "A birthday gift? That's your legal claim to my $5 million company." "Our attorney says it's enough to establish a case," my mother said. "We'd prefer not to go that route. But if you're going to be difficult about helping your brother..." I stood up, unable to remain at that table another minute. "This is insane. You're trying to take everything I've built because you've enabled Noah's failures for 35 years and now you're paying the price." "Don't speak about your brother that way," my mother snapped. "We're your parents," my father added sternly. "You owe us this." I walked out without another word, my hands shaking so badly I could barely start my car. I called Melissa in tears, trying to explain the surreal dinner between gasping breaths. She came over immediately, holding me, as the shock gave way to raw pain. Later that night, unable to sleep, I searched online for information about the legal claim my father had mentioned. To my horror, there was indeed an obscure provision in our state's family business law that could potentially be used to claim parental interest in a business under certain circumstances. Further research revealed that my parents had already filed preliminary legal papers the week before our dinner. They had invited me over not with any hope I would agree, but as a courtesy before they took legal action. As I sat in my darkened living room at 3 a.m. staring at legal documents on my laptop screen, the full weight of the betrayal crushed me. My own parents were willing to destroy everything I had built, not because they needed financial help, which I would have gladly provided, but to redirect my success to Noah, their eternal favorite. The family dynamics that had shaped my childhood were now threatening my adult achievements. The middle child, eternally overlooked, was now worth noticing only because I had something they could take. The pain was indescribable, a physical ache that made it hard to breathe. But beneath that pain, something else was beginning to form: determination. I had built my company without their support. I would defend it without their blessing. I awoke the next morning, after maybe 2 hours of fitful sleep, my body feeling like it had been hit by a truck. The emotional shock had manifested physically. My limbs were heavy, my head pounding, my thoughts scattered. I moved through my morning routine, mechanically unable to process the reality that my own parents were trying to legally steal my company. By 9 a.m., I was sitting in the office of Jennifer Pierce, one of Boston's top business attorneys. I'd called in every favor and paid an emergency consultation fee to get this meeting. Jennifer was in her 40s, sharp-featured and sharper-minded, with a reputation for being ruthlessly effective. "So, your parents are claiming that a birthday check constitutes seed funding for your company," she summarized after I explained the situation. "And they filed papers already." I handed her the documents I'd found online. She reviewed them, her expression growing increasingly concerned. "This is more serious than I initially thought," she said finally. "There's a provision in Massachusetts family business law they're leveraging. It's rarely used, but technically, if they provided any financial support that directly contributed to the formation of your business, and if they can prove there was an implied understanding of family involvement, they might have a prima facie case." "A $500 birthday check?" I asked incredulously. "That's enough." "It's not about the amount," Jennifer explained. "It's about establishing a pattern of family financial entanglement. If they can convince a judge there was an understanding that your business was built on family support, even symbolically, they could gain partial ownership rights." My stomach dropped. "So they could actually take my company?" "Not if we fight this correctly," Jennifer said firmly. "We need to establish clear evidence that your business was developed independently, without substantial family support. We need documentation, witnesses, a paper trail of your independent development." Over the next week, I dove into gathering evidence. I pulled bank records showing I had funded the company myself through savings and early client revenue. I documented my parents' absence from any business meetings, decisions, or events. I cataloged emails and text messages showing their complete lack of interest in my company until now. Melissa was my rock through this process. She took time off work to help organize the documents, create timelines, and keep me functioning when grief threatened to overwhelm me. "They don't get to take this from you," she said repeatedly. "Not after everything you've built." I reached out to my sister Abigail, who had been kept in the dark about our parents' plans. Over coffee at a neutral location, her eyes widened in horror as I explained the situation. "I knew they were in financial trouble because of Noah," she said. "But this is insane." "Financial trouble? How bad?" I asked. Abigail sighed. "They remortgaged the house to invest in Noah's fitness franchise. Then when that started failing, they took out personal loans. Dad cashed out what was left of his 401 Kelvin. Mom's been working extra administrative jobs to make payments. They're underwater, Ethan. They could have just asked me for help." I said, the pain fresh again. I would have helped them. Not Noah's business, but them personally. Why try to take my entire company? Because it's never been about money. Abigail said softly, "It's about Noah being the successful one. They've invested so much in that narrative that they can't let it go even now. I met with Frank Wilson, my first mentor, who was outraged on my behalf. "I'll testify about your independent development of the company," he promised. I was there from day one. There was no family involvement whatsoever. I tracked down Harriet Green, my first client, along with several other early customers who remembered a young entrepreneur working alone without family backing or involvement. Each agreed to provide statements about my independent business development. Meanwhile, Jennifer had her team investigating my parents' finances and Noah's business history. What they uncovered was worse than I imagined. My parents had been systematically supporting Noah's failed ventures for years, creating a pattern of financial rescue that had accelerated with each failure. The fitness franchise was just the latest in a string of poorly conceived businesses that had drained their resources. 2 days before the court date, we had a final pre-trial meeting with Jennifer and her team. They had attempted to arrange mediation with my parents' attorney, but the offer had been flatly refused. "They believe they have a strong case," Jennifer explained. "Your father's background in financial advising makes him overconfident in their legal position." That evening, Noah called me. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won out. "You're tearing this family apart," he said immediately. His voice slurred slightly. He'd been drinking. "Just sign the papers, and this can all go away. You want me to sign away my company to fix a problem you created?" I replied, struggling to keep my voice steady. "The company I built while you were failing at one business after another. I've never had the advantages you had." Noah shot back the familiar refrain from our childhood. "You were always the smart one, the one who had it easy." The absurdity of his statement made me laugh, a hollow sound. "Easy, I worked through college while they paid for your private university. I built my company with no help while they funded every one of your failures. And now you want my company too." "It's just business," he said dismissively. "Family comes first." "Family comes first," I repeated. "Remember that tomorrow in court." I barely slept that night, going over strategy with Jennifer's team until past midnight, then lying awake rehearsing responses to potential questions. By the time my alarm went off, I had maybe 2 hours of broken sleep, but adrenaline had replaced exhaustion. As I put on my best suit, I caught my reflection in the mirror and hardly recognized the hard-eyed man staring back. The accommodating middle child was gone. Today, I would fight for what was mine. The courthouse was an imposing granite building in downtown Boston, its steps already busy with morning traffic. When I arrived with Melissa and Jennifer at 8:30, my parents and Noah were already there, huddled with their attorney near the entrance. My father wore his most expensive suit. My mother, a conservative dress that screamed respectability. Noah looked uncomfortable in formal attire that didn't quite fit him properly. Our eyes met briefly across the marble lobby. My mother looked away first, but my father held my gaze with a cold determination that confirmed this wasn't just about money. This was about control, about maintaining the family hierarchy that had defined our relationship since childhood. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, wood-paneled and formal. We took our places at opposite tables. The physical distance between us, symbolic of the emotional chasm that had opened. Judge Eleanor Wilson was a severe-looking woman in her 60s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing as she reviewed the case files. My parents' attorney, Gerald Thompson, presented their case first. He was a silver-haired man with the smooth confidence of someone used to winning. "Your Honor, this is fundamentally a case about family business and parental investment," he began. Richard and Diana Hayes provided not only the financial seed capital for their son's business venture, but years of support, guidance, and family resources that made his success possible. He painted a picture of devoted parents who had sacrificed to provide me with education and opportunities, only to be shut out of the family business I had supposedly built on their foundation. He emphasized the birthday check, characterizing it as a business investment rather than a gift, and suggested there had always been an understanding that my success would benefit the family as a whole. The parents are not seeking to take control for personal gain, Thompson concluded. They simply want to ensure family resources are distributed fairly among their children, including their older son who has demonstrated entrepreneurial spirit but faced greater challenges. Jennifer stood next, her posture confident, her voice clear and unwavering. Your Honor, this case is not about family business or parental investment. It's about an attempt to appropriate a successful company built entirely through the independent efforts of my client. Ethan Hayes created Inventrack through his own skill, determination, and hard work without meaningful support from his parents. She methodically dismantled Thompson's narrative, presenting bank records showing I had funded the company myself, testimony from early clients and business associates, confirming the absence of any family involvement, and documentation of my parents' complete lack of interest in my business until it became valuable. A birthday check, Your Honor, does not constitute seed funding. It constitutes a birthday gift as clearly indicated by the card that accompanied it, which read, "Happy birthday, Ethan, not investment in your business venture." This earned a small smile from the judge and a few muffled laughs from the small audience in the courtroom. My father testified next, portraying himself as a devoted parent who had always supported both his sons equally. We always believed in Ethan's potential, he claimed. We provided him with the stable home environment, educational opportunities, and family support system that allowed him to develop his talents. Jennifer's cross-examination was surgical. Mr. Hayes, you claim you supported both your sons equally. Did you pay for Noah's college education in full? Yes, we did, my father admitted. And did you pay for Ethan's education? We contributed what we could. By contributed what you could, you mean you gave him a used laptop for his high school graduation while he worked 30 hours a week through college to pay his own tuition, correct? My father shifted uncomfortably. Different children have different needs. Indeed, Jennifer agreed. And how many businesses have you financially supported for your older son, Noah? We've helped him with several ventures, my father admitted. 6 failed businesses to be precise. Jennifer corrected. With total investments exceeding $350,000. How much did you invest in Ethan's business? The $500 check was just the beginning of our support, my father insisted. What other support did you provide? Did you attend business meetings? Offer advice? Make introductions to potential clients? We provided moral support, my father said weakly. Moral support, Jennifer repeated. Yet according to these text messages, when Ethan invited you to his company's 5th anniversary celebration last year, you declined because, and I quote, "Noah needs help moving into his new office that weekend." My mother testified next, her approach more emotional. She spoke tearfully about family loyalty and obligation, how children should support their parents and siblings in times of need. We just want what's fair for all our children, she concluded, dabbing at her eyes. Mrs. Hayes. Jennifer asked during cross-examination, in the past 5 years, how many times have you asked Ethan about his business? My mother blinked. I'm sure we've discussed it. According to Ethan's sister Abigail's affidavit at the last 6 family gatherings, you spent an average of 3 minutes asking about Ethan's growing company while devoting over an hour to discussing Noah's business ventures. Does that sound accurate? I might have shown more interest in Noah's businesses because he needed more encouragement, my mother replied. Defensively, Jennifer nodded. And now that Ethan's business is successful, you're suddenly very interested. So interested, in fact, that you want to take control of it. The evidence continued to mount throughout the day. Frank Wilson testified about my independent development of Inventrack, describing in detail how I had created the business plan, secured early clients, and built the company without family resources or connections. I've mentored dozens of young entrepreneurs, Frank told the court. Ethan stands out as one of the most self-reliant, hard-working individuals I've ever met. There was never any mention of family involvement in his business. Early clients testified about working with me when I was just starting out, confirming I had always operated independently without family backing or involvement. The turning point came when Jennifer presented financial records obtained through discovery. They revealed that Noah had transferred significant sums from his business accounts to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands, including funds directly traced to my parents' second mortgage and retirement accounts. Your Honor, Jennifer said these records show that while the plaintiffs claim they're seeking to fairly distribute family resources, their son Noah has been systematically moving their investments offshore beyond their control and potentially beyond the reach of creditors. Noah, who had been slumped in his chair looking bored throughout most of the proceedings, suddenly sat up straight. My parents exchanged alarmed glances. The judge turned her penetrating gaze to Noah. Mr. Hayes, would you care to explain these transfers? Noah stood adjusting his tie nervously. It's just normal business operations, Your Honor. International expansion requires international banking. Your fitness franchise has international locations, the judge asked, skeptically. We're planning to expand, Noah stammered. Into the Cayman Islands, specifically. It's a growing market, Noah insisted weakly. Jennifer produced more documents. According to these records, Mr. Noah Hayes has made no business expenditures from these accounts. The money appears to be sitting untouched except for a transfer to a real estate company in Belize last month, coinciding with the purchase of a beachfront property. Noah's face flushed with anger. You had no right to dig into my personal finances, he shouted, jumping to his feet. Mr. Hayes, control yourself or I'll have you removed, the judge warned sharply. My parents looked stunned, their carefully constructed narrative crumbling before their eyes. Their attorney tried to redirect the focus back to the birthday check and family business claims, but the damage was done. In her closing argument, Jennifer was concise and powerful. Your Honor, this case is not about family business. It's about a successful entrepreneur who built a company through his own efforts without support from parents who consistently favored his brother. Now that the company has value, they're attempting to seize control not to help the family as a whole, but to continue their pattern of rescuing their older son from his financial mismanagement. The law is not designed to enable such taking. Thompson's closing argument felt hollow after the revelations about Noah's offshore accounts. He continued to emphasize family obligations and the symbolic importance of the birthday check, but his earlier confidence had evaporated. After both sides finished, Judge Wilson called a brief recess to review the evidence. Those 30 minutes were the longest of my life. I sat silently beside Jennifer and Melissa, unable to eat or drink, my future hanging in the balance. When the judge returned, her expression was stern. I've reviewed the evidence presented by both parties, and I'm prepared to rule. She looked directly at my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Hayes, the court finds your claim of ownership interest in Inventrack Solutions to be without merit. A birthday gift does not constitute business investment, nor does providing a childhood home establish an ownership stake in a business created by an adult child through their own efforts. She continued, her voice taking on an edge of disapproval. Furthermore, the evidence suggests this claim was not brought in good faith, but rather as an attempt to appropriate assets from one child to benefit another. This court will not be party to such an endeavor. My parents' faces fell as the judge continued. The restraining order against any transfer of business ownership is dissolved. Mr. Ethan Hayes retains full ownership and control of his company. Additionally, given the evidence of potential financial impropriety revealed during these proceedings, I am referring the matter of the offshore accounts to the appropriate authorities for further investigation. She looked at me with a hint of sympathy. Mr. Hayes, the court regrets that your business success has led to this unfortunate family conflict. Your company remains yours as it should be. With a bang of her gavel, it was over. I had won. My company remained mine. But as I looked across at my parents' angry, disappointed faces and Noah's sullen glare, I knew that whatever remained of our family relationship had been destroyed in this courtroom. As we stood to leave, I felt a strange mixture of vindication and grief. I had protected what was rightfully mine, but at what cost? The answer to that question would unfold in the difficult months ahead. Walking out of the courthouse should have felt triumphant. I had won completely, saved my company, and exposed the truth. Instead, I felt hollow, like something essential had been carved out of me. Melissa squeezed my hand as we descended the courthouse steps, reporters calling questions about the unusual family business case that had already generated local buzz. My parents and Noah exited behind us, taking a different path to avoid crossing our path. My mother's eyes were red from crying, my father's face a mask of cold fury. Noah wouldn't look at me at all. None of them spoke or acknowledged me as they hurried to their car, a unified front even in defeat. "Give it time," Jennifer advised, noticing my gaze following them. "Family conflicts this deep don't heal overnight, if they heal at all." The next few days passed in a blur. Local business publications picked up the story, "Tech entrepreneur fends off family takeover attempt." The coverage was sympathetic to me, portraying a self-made success story defending against opportunistic relatives. Some articles even touched on the psychological aspects of middle child syndrome and family favoritism, making our private dysfunction uncomfortably public. One unexpected consequence of the court case was the exposure of Noah's financial mismanagement. Within days, creditors of his fitness franchise filed claims based on the financial information revealed in court. The offshore accounts were frozen pending investigation, and Noah faced potential charges for financial impropriety. My parents, meanwhile, faced the collapse of their financial situation without the bailout they had counted on. The second mortgage they had taken out to fund Noah's business became an immediate concern, with the bank initiating foreclosure proceedings when payments were missed. Through all this, my own business continued to grow, ironically boosted by the publicity from the court case. New clients reached out, curious about the inventory management system that was apparently valuable enough for a family to fight over in court. Melissa was my anchor throughout this turbulent time. One evening, as we sat on my balcony watching the harbor lights, she surprised me by kneeling down and opening a small box. "Ethan Hayes, I was planning to wait for you to do this, but after watching you stand up for yourself and what you've built, I realized something. I don't want to wait for life to happen. I want to make it happen." She opened the box, revealing a simple platinum band. "Will you marry me?" The unexpected role reversal made me laugh through sudden tears. "Aren't I supposed to be asking you?" "We've never done things the conventional way," she replied with a smile. "Why start now?" I said, "Yes, of course." In the midst of family breakdown, we were creating something new. A chosen family built on mutual respect and support, rather than obligation and favoritism. Weeks passed without contact from my parents or Noah. I started seeing a therapist to process the grief and betrayal, slowly accepting that some family wounds might never fully heal. Through therapy, I began to understand that my parents' behavior wasn't really about me or even about money. It was about their own inability to see beyond the family narrative they had created, where Noah was the golden child who deserved endless chances, and I was the self-sufficient one who needed nothing. Abigail remained the only family member who stayed in contact, meeting me for occasional lunches where we carefully navigated our new reality. She was caught in an impossible position, torn between loyalty to our parents and her relationship with me. "They're struggling," she admitted during one such lunch about a month after the court case. "The bank is moving forward with foreclosure, and Dad's had health issues from the stress." Despite everything, I felt a pang of concern. "Are they getting proper medical care?" "Dad's too proud to go to the doctor as often as he should," Abigail said. "And they're cutting corners on his medications to save money." I sat with that information for a day before calling Jennifer. "I want to help my parents with their medical expenses," I told her. "But I need to do it in a way that protects me legally." Jennifer helped me set up a healthcare fund that would cover my father's medical needs without giving my parents direct access to money. It was a boundary and an olive branch at the same time. 6 weeks after the court case, I attempted reconciliation. I invited my parents to meet at a neutral location, a quiet restaurant with private seating. To my surprise, they accepted. The meeting was painfully awkward. My parents looked older, the stress of recent events etched into their faces. My father had lost weight, his suit hanging loosely on his frame. "We appreciate the medical fund," my mother said stiffly after we had ordered. "Though we would have managed." "I know," I said, "but I wanted to help." "Just not with Noah's business," my father said, a hint of the old bitterness surfacing. "No," I agreed, "not with that." The conversation remained tense, with underlying resentments bubbling just beneath the surface. When I mentioned my engagement to Melissa, my mother's congratulations felt perfunctory. When they asked about my business, I could see them calculating what might have been theirs. We were going through the motions of family without the substance. As we prepared to leave, I made one final attempt. "I hope we can find a way forward," I said. "A different relationship, maybe, but still a relationship." My father nodded stiffly. "Perhaps, but it will take time." My mother's response was less measured. "You chose your business over your family, Ethan. That's something we're still coming to terms with." I bit back the obvious retort that they had chosen Noah over me my entire life and simply nodded. This wasn't the reconciliation I had hoped for, but it was a start, however small. Noah disappeared shortly after the court case, reportedly leaving the state to avoid creditors and potential legal issues. According to Abigail, he had cut contact with our parents as well, blaming them for the failed legal strategy that had exposed his financial maneuvers. By the 3-month mark after the court case, my parents were forced to sell the family home, moving into a small apartment in a less desirable neighborhood. I offered financial help beyond the medical fund, with clear conditions. The money was for them, not for bailing out Noah again, and it would be structured as a formal loan with reasonable terms. "We'll consider it," my father said, when I made the offer during a tense phone call. They never took me up on it. My feelings during this period were complex and contradictory. I grieved for the family relationship I had always wanted but never truly had. I felt guilt over my parents' financial struggles, despite knowing I wasn't responsible for their choices. I felt anger that even now they couldn't acknowledge the patterns that had led us here. Most of all, I felt a strange mix of sadness and liberation. Sadness for what was lost. Liberation from the need for approval I would never receive. 1 year after the court battle that changed everything, my life had transformed in ways both painful and positive. Inventrack had grown exponentially, now worth $15 million with offices in 3 cities and over 100 employees. We had developed new product lines and expanded into international market success beyond what I had imagined when working from my tiny apartment years earlier. Melissa and I married in a small ceremony by the harbor, surrounded by friends and chosen family. Abigail attended, serving as Melissa's bridesmaid. My parents came too. Our relationship still fragile but slowly mending. They sat stiffly during the ceremony, but made an effort at the reception, making polite conversation with Melissa's family and offering congratulations that felt almost genuine. The family dynamics had shifted permanently. My parents no longer treated me as the invisible middle child, but approached me with a cautious respect born from the recognition of my independence and success. The pedestal they had placed Noah on had crumbled, though old habits died hard, and I occasionally caught glimpses of the old favoritism in their interactions. Noah returned about 6 months after disappearing, having reached a settlement with his creditors that avoided criminal charges but left him financially drained. To everyone's surprise, especially mine, this rock-bottom moment seemed to trigger genuine change. He took a regular job at a sporting goods store, lived in a modest apartment, and for the first time in his life, supported himself without family bailouts. Our parents' financial situation stabilized. They would never return to their previous lifestyle, but they adapted to their new circumstances with gradually increasing grace. My father found part-time work as a financial consultant, swallowing his pride to accept a position less prestigious than his former career. My mother increased her administrative work hours, finding unexpected satisfaction in her increased responsibilities. I maintained the medical fund for my father, and eventually established a small trust that provided my parents with supplemental income structured with clear boundaries to prevent misuse. These financial supports came with conditions primarily that they attend family therapy sessions with me. Those therapy sessions were uncomfortable but necessary, forcing us to address decades of dysfunctional patterns. My mother cried when I described how it felt to be constantly overlooked as a child. My father struggled to admit the damaging effects of his favoritism. Progress came in small increments. Setbacks followed breakthroughs, and complete healing remained elusive. But we were talking honestly, and painfully breaking the silence that had allowed toxic patterns to flourish. "I never realized how much it hurt you," my mother admitted, during one particularly emotional session. "We thought you were fine because you were so self-sufficient. I became self-sufficient because I had to be," I replied. "Because I learned early that I couldn't count on the support Noah received." My father, always more reserved, took longer to acknowledge his role. "I saw myself in Noah," he finally admitted in our 6th session. "His struggles, his charisma. I wanted to give him what I never had. I didn't see how that came at your expense." These revelations didn't erase the past, but they created space for a different future. Our relationship would never be what I had longed for as a child, but it was becoming something new, built on honesty rather than denial. The experience changed me in profound ways. I established a scholarship fund for middle children. From challenging family dynamics, providing educational support for those who, like me, had to forge their own path. I began mentoring young entrepreneurs, especially those from backgrounds where family support was lacking. Sharing both technical knowledge and the emotional resilience necessary to succeed despite obstacles. Melissa and I bought a house with a view of the ocean, creating the warm, supportive home environment neither of us had experienced growing up. We discussed starting a family, both committed to breaking the cycles of favoritism and conditional love that had shaped my childhood. My relationship with Noah evolved in unexpected ways. After initial awkwardness, we established a cautious connection based on his new humility and my willingness to forgive without forgetting. He would never be the brother I had wished for growing up, but we found a way to acknowledge our shared history while creating a different present. "I was awful to you," he acknowledged over coffee one day about 15 months after the court case. "Not just with the company thing, but always. I took it for granted that I deserved more. You were taught that," I pointed out. "We all were." He nodded. "Still, I'm sorry." Those 2 words, sincerely offered, healed something in me I hadn't realized was still wounded. Looking back on the journey from invisible middle child to successful entrepreneur to family lawsuit and beyond, I recognize that pain can become purpose when we refuse to let our wounds define us. The court battle that once seemed like the end of my family became, ironically, the beginning of honesty between us. The patterns established in childhood proved difficult, but not impossible to change. I learned that standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. That family love should be unconditional, but family relationships require boundaries. That forgiveness doesn't mean allowing harmful patterns to continue. Most importantly, I learned that we can honor our worth while still leaving room for compassion toward those who failed to see it. Today, as I look out at the ocean from my office window, I feel a peace that once seemed impossible. The family dynamics that once defined and confined me no longer hold that power. I've created success on my terms, relationships based on mutual respect and boundaries that protect without isolating. For anyone watching who recognizes their own family struggles in my story, know this. You can break the patterns. You can stand firm in your worth while still leaving room for reconciliation. You can create the life you deserve, even when those who should support you the most fail to do so. What family dynamics have shaped your life? Have you ever had to stand up to loved ones who couldn't see your worth? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that they too can overcome family patterns that don't serve them. Thank you for listening to my journey from invisible middle child to standing my ground. Remember, your worth isn't determined by how others value you. It's inherent, unshakable, and entirely your own.